Welcome to this concluding plenary session. Can I hand over to the facilitator for this final session, David Malden.
Okay, thank you very much. And welcome to the final session. One nice thing about my job is I get to do some fun things up here. And the first really enjoyable moment is to reintroduce the winners of the poster competition so that they can come up and receive their awards. And that is Nazmum Nahermita from Bangladesh. Please come on up here. And everybody. Oh Xiaowu from China. Please come on up, Oh Xiaowu. Anika Azin from Pakistan. Sujata Bhattacharya from India. And Dilip Bhattarai from Nepal. And a big congratulations to all of you. Wait just a minute. Let me give you your goodies here. Okay, you want to have fast. Okay. Let's give them another round of applause. And as I mentioned yesterday, the judges, the panel did this completely independent of one another. And it's wonderful how we have 5 winners from 5 different countries. Also wonderful that we have 4 of the 5 as women here, really showing that we hope in the future we'll have more panelists. But for the moment, what we want you to do is come and join us at the front because we're going to ask you some questions later. Okay? Now I'll hand it over back to Andrew.
Thank you, David. So I've one final announcement, which I've just been told now before we begin. If you need to see the finance desk, they're here until 3 o'clock only. So please see the finance desk before 3 o'clock if you need to get anything from them. So, now I would like to introduce our distinguished panel for this final session. We have Bhartendu Mishra from the National Planning Commission of Nepal, Jigme Rinzin from the National Council of Bhutan, Rojina Manandar from UNFCCC, Jamie McGoldrick, who is the United Nations resident coordinator here in Nepal. We've not heard anything before from Mr. McGoldrick, so I'll tell you a little bit about him. He's currently, as I said, the resident coordinator of the UN system here in Nepal. Previously, he has been in Georgia, in Ocha, for 17 years, and he has expertise in natural disaster and conflicts. He's lots of experience in Africa and the Middle East, and he's worked before for the Red Cross Society and for Save the Children. So that's a little bit of information about Mr. McGoldrick. Also, we have Malik Shakir Bashir Awal, who is a member of the National Assembly in Pakistan, and we have Mr. Yang Yongping. So that is your distinguished panel. And so now, without further ado, I'd like to hand over... Oh, I'm sorry, sir, I have forgotten to introduce Mr. Ganesh Thapa also. Okay. And now I would like to hand over to David.
Okay, thank you, Andrew, and thank you all for joining on this very last session. Actually, the title of this session is Getting Mountains on the Global Agenda, Mapping the Way Forward. But I think what we've been hearing in the workshop is that we have to link the local, national, regional, and global. So what we're going to do is explore more than the global level and be asking questions about what people can do on a national scale. We'll have a summary of the meeting. Ganesh Thapa will do that. In just a few minutes, Ganesh. That's a difficult job, but you're the right person to do that, I'm sure. I wanted to just unpack the title a little bit, Mountain People Adapting to Change, Solutions Beyond Boundaries, Bridging Science, Policy, and Practice. Actually, we had a competition to get that name, and I think put two or three winners and put the name together based on 2 or 3 winners. But certainly it's about mountains. And that's what one of the participants was getting up and saying, please keep your mountain focus. What's particular for mountains? And especially when we get to the global agenda, you know, what mountain messages do we want to take? But for sure, mountain people face very unique problems that some are the same globally, but a lot are very unique to mountain areas. And we wanted the focus to be on mountain people. And I can tell you what I heard a lot in the meeting is that we have to focus on people and communities really to get this adaptation job done. Yes, we need the high-flying science, but make sure to get down at the community level. By the way, the DRR work is a perfect example of that, where you know the early warning systems don't work unless you get the message down to the people. Adapting to change is another part of the title. And yes, climate change is there, but what we've heard throughout the meeting, there are so many other drivers, so many other changes happening, and all these changes are intertwined. And actually, it was on purpose that we left out the word climate change from the title, although certainly that's an important part of it, but there are many other pieces to that. The other key word is solutions, right? We want to be very solution-oriented. What new ideas can we take to the communities? Can we take to the field? Can we take into policy? Now, the other part was beyond borders, right? And I think everybody has recognized the need for this approach that goes beyond sectors, goes beyond disciplines. But in addition to that, we have a very regional meeting with people from our member countries and beyond. And we recognize that a lot of these solutions have to require a lot of regional cooperation and global cooperation to take advantage of. But the other kind of boundary we saw was this bridging of science with policy and practice. That one seemed like that's a difficult one, right? How do we get that information, the knowledge generated into science, policy, and practice? How do we get the demand for that? And I believe we were trying through the whole meeting really to explore that issue. We also explored even the idea of knowledge, and I love it. Right in the beginning, the scene was set when I believe Anil Mishra said, maybe we don't have the data and the research, but there's certainly no lack of knowledge in the region. And so all kinds of knowledge from what's in the communities that we're not tapping into. So there's a role of even bridging into all kinds of knowledge in this area. Now, I believe we've come a long way in kind of doing everything that the title promises to us to do, but you can see that's a big agenda. Now, Ganesh Thapa, could I ask you to give us your summary of the events over the last few days, if that's possible, but I'm sure we're anxious for that. Ganesh, please. Yeah, I think it's better if you go up to the podium.
Distinguished panelists, Dr. David Malden and all the fellow participants. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for giving me this enormous task of summarizing the proceedings of the conference, 4-day conference. And I would like to also thank Mr. Nandakishore Agrawal and his team, communication team, for providing me with the daily briefs, which form the basis for my summary. On day 1 at the inaugural session, the Vice Chair of the National Planning Commission of Nepal emphasized that the HKS countries must share experiences and knowledge and seek to integrate adaptation into development plans. I think that set the stage for our conference. And how can we forget his two acronyms, T, the TEA, to describe the enormous potentials that the SKS Himalayas have, and the second acronym, ICE, to describe what needs to be done to harness that potential. And then we had an introductory statement from ICIMOD's DG, David Malden, who said that there have been dramatic environmental and socio-economic changes in the Hindu Kush Himalayan region. But he said that they also provide enormous opportunities to capitalize on in terms of environmental protection, as well as increasing the income opportunities of the most marginalized people. And he further reminded us that we can make a difference in addressing mountain challenges through knowledge, ideas, innovations, partnerships, and sharing. And he went on to describe a 4-tier process to actually translate evidence-based knowledge into policies and actions on the ground. The first step, according to David Malden, was to develop new ideas, new understandings that can help in the process of adapting the change. Second, to find ways to ensure that knowledge products are effectively used in policy and practice. Third, this conference should help to enhance networks and communities of practice, and the messages we develop through this conference should be taken to the regional and global community. Then we had our first high-level leadership panel on managing change, which stressed the need for knowledge to contribute to concrete policies and actions on the ground, the similar theme that was highlighted by David and also the chief guest. And we also heard that if adaptation policies are to respond effectively to local conditions, then science must also be tailored to local conditions. And we also heard that while governments are there to facilitate, the main drivers for adaptation need to be the local communities themselves. I think this is a very strong message from the first panel, and which means that development needs to be people-centered and local voices must be heard. And I think the most crucial outcome of the first panel, in my opinion, was the recommendation to generate a unified mountain voice through regional and global cooperation without losing sight of the local needs. And to do this, I think there were a few suggestions. One was to revive the mountain initiative and possibly set up a Himalayan council along the line of the Arctic Council that could be a promising vehicle for creating that unified and strong voice. Let's move to day 2 quickly. The day 2 was focused on science, the first element of our conference. And we had the keynote speaker, Mr. Deepak Gyawali, who questioned actually the process of IPCC, saying that it did not allow local knowledge to filter up to the global reports. And in his opinion, IPCC is constrained by too much eagle-eye science and too little toad's-eye science. So there is a need, according to Mr. Gyawali, to rethink how development cooperation is carried out at the international level. And then we had a number of panelists and a very interesting discussion. And first point was that knowledge from the region and the representation of scientists from the region in the IPCC process is low at the moment, and this needs to be rectified, although there has been some progress from AR4 to AR5. So I think that was also noticed. And panelists also highlighted the major data and information gaps, for example, precipitation, distribution, etc. I do not want to go into all the details. And it was also noted that IPCC reports are strong in terms of analysis of the global issues, but they were weak in the analysis of sub-national issues, sub-regional issues, and local issues. Then we had a series of panels on day 2 on black carbon, disaster preparedness, ecosystem-based adaptation, applying global, regional climate scenarios to edge case, and vulnerability and resilience. There were many interesting points raised in those panels. I cannot be very comprehensive. I will just select a few. The first is the need for more detailed in situ and remote sensing-based studies to understand the deposit of black carbon on glaciers, and also it recommended that existing mitigation technologies should be transferred to the people at the grassroots level. So a strong focus on transferring knowledge to the grassroots. And the second important point from these panels was that disaster-related challenges should be addressed by adopting need-based technologies, solutions. And we should build long-term resilience based on past hazards and also looking at the needs of the people. And also, there was a recommendation to downscale models to assess the impact at the local level. So a strong focus on grassroots and local level in these science-related panels on day 2. And one important point raised in one panel was that adaptation policies and actions should not only focus on proximate causes of vulnerability, but they should also be transformational, meaning that they should try to seek broader and systemic change at the political and social regimes level. Now, let me move to day 3, where the focus was more on policies. The plenary session was on connecting national action plans with global strategies, and the keynote speaker, Dr. Atikur Rahman from Bangladesh, he called for close coordination among different government agencies. This has been a problem in all of the Hindu-Kush Himalayan countries, the lack of coordination and collaboration among the government agencies. And he also stressed the importance of good science, effective policies, adequate finance, good governance, and robust implementation for effective climate change adaptation. And the need to engage different institutions and transfer ownership to regional centers and networks. I think this came from the representative of UNFCCC. And there were 2 important points from this plenary session. The first was that we have 3 important elements for effective adaptation work. The first one is technology, capacity building, and resources. And that the focus should be on the speed of implementation, scale of adaptation projects, and scope of comprehensive adaptation action. And on day 3, we had interesting panels on insurance and risk mitigation, from mountain to mountain, the transfer of knowledge across different mountains, transboundary river issues, river basin issues, and translating science to policy through communication. So we had different panels. And again, I will be very selective in identifying some of the lessons and some of the important points. The first one is that poor communication and coordination poses significant challenges in fostering regional cooperation in the Hindu-Kush Himalayan region and to foster partnership. And there was a strong call from different panelists that ICIMOD can play an active and important role in building bridges across institutions and countries. ICIMOD is already doing that, but I think there is a demand for more work in this area. And the second important recommendation that came from a panel was to promote insurance services which are now constrained by factors such as the low affordability of schemes by farmers, lack of data for pricing of the risk, and other important impediments. And innovative solutions to promote sharing of benefits of transboundary basins was also discussed in one of the panels. And also an important point was the need to provide simple, easy to understand, and evidence-based scientific message to media and general public. And a lot of panelists and other discussants, they identified very specific role of the media and civil society in promoting this knowledge. Now, let me move to today, day 4. We had a very interesting plenary this morning on integrating adaptation knowledge into development. We had a keynote speaker, Dr. Hari Upadhyaya, and he made an interesting presentation. I would like to identify one observation that he made is that integration is possible, policy change is possible, but normally it happens under 3 circumstances. The first one is when there is a crisis situation. When there is crisis, we are very good in managing crisis, especially in South Asia. So I think his experience is that if there is a crisis, then we act. The second, if there is a political decision, then it is carried out by the bureaucracy and there is also flow of funds. And third, if you have a good best practice, excellent best practice, then you can follow that model. And he gave an example of high-value agriculture production, especially vegetable production, and how this has made a difference in the hills of Nepal. And then we had some interesting discussion after the plenary presentation, and I would like to identify 3 different points. The first is that there is possibly a trade-off between meeting the immediate growth needs, achieving immediate growth needs, and the long-term environmental consequences. So I think we need to find ways to somehow reconcile the trade-off between the immediate needs and the longer-term environmental protection. And the second was the need to promote institutional reform and institutional strengthening. And there was an observation that since mountain areas are so diverse in terms of culture, in terms of topography, so maybe there is a need to create new forums, because the existing forums cannot provide answers. And it was also observed that institution building is an iterative process, so we need to make a lot of long-term effort. And there was a very interesting observation also in that panel, that have we weakened the government, which has to play a very important role through 2 different set of activities. One is the promotion of private sector, and the second, the activists are also trying to promote a lot of things through NGOs, which is not bad. I think we are promoting multi-stakeholder participation in all of the things we do, but I don't think we should also weaken the government, because government has to play a very important role. This is a food for thought. I think the situation will be very different according to different countries. And then I attended one session, panel session this morning, and it was on value chain, and this was also to me a very interesting session. And then I think the summary of this session was that there is a need to emphasize niche products in mountain areas, because staple food production cannot generate enough income and opportunities for farmers. Their farm size is small, and both input acquisition as well as the sale of market produce is difficult. So it's very important to focus on low volume, high value agriculture products. And also the second suggestion was that we need to link small producers to markets through the promotion of producer groups, cooperatives, and different forms of farmer groups. And also we need to empower farmers by providing them with ownership of the processing facilities, so that they have incentives to produce high quality produce, and also in higher quantities. There are 2 highlights of this conference which I need to mention. The first one is the launching of the regional database system, the RDS, which is, as you heard in one of the sessions, is a central data depository for different thematic areas in the Hindu Kush Himalayan region. And it's an open access web-based portal, and it is hoped that the creation of this portal will fill at least a part of the gap in data that we all suffer from in the region. And the second highlight, a very interesting highlight, was the poster exhibition and the Innovative Solutions Marketplace, in which more than 20 young professionals from our region participated, and some of them were awarded very recently. And the second was the showcasing of different innovative solutions by different organizations. I think there were 20 or so. So this was also a very good highlight. Now, to sum up, I would like to make some concluding remarks. In my opinion, I think the most important messages that I carry from this conference is that there is a very strong need for advocacy at the different levels. We need to have unified mountain voice. We need to ensure that the outputs of this conference is taken to different regional and global forums and initiatives. I can name a few, the SARC Summit, which is happening in a few days' time, the different events and programs of UNFCCC, and post-2015 development agenda, the Sustainable Development Goals. I hope that our contribution reaches those different fora so that we can make a difference. We also need to share and influence national policymakers. I think it's not enough to sensitize and inform the global and regional, but I think we need to also work with our policymakers in each of the member countries. And of course, greater collaboration with media and civil society so that the important messages go out to the people. Second, how do we ensure that knowledge from HKS and the representation of region scientists is increased in the IPCC process? I think I highlighted this. I hope this contribution, this conference contributes towards that end, and also the establishment of the RDS. Third, I think we need to work hard to create mechanisms for collective reflection and learning among researchers, policymakers, practitioners, and communities, especially the most marginalized communities, including the indigenous people, women, and other marginalized groups. Good practices exist. I think we heard a lot of good practices were shared, and there is a need to promote more, and perhaps we need to also create new forums to share those. Fourth, there is a need to address the disconnect between the global, national, and local levels through better communication among scientists, policymakers, communities. I think, and in this, the role of media and the role of civil society is very, very crucial. Fifth, scaling of innovative solutions. I think there is a need for a long-term collaboration, long-term initiatives, starting with assessments, careful assessments, leading to piloting of innovative solutions, and then scaling up of those initiatives so that we can make a real difference. Sixth, resources. I think there were a number of comments made on this, and there was even a call to raise the allocation to adaptation to 50% of the available global resources. This is a good target. I think we should always have a good target. But I think there is a political economy problem. I think we need to work with the donor community in terms of allocating more resources. And also we need to look at the capacity to absorb increased resources, whether we have the capacity in our countries and how can we improve those capacity. And there is also an asymmetry of information and trust. I think there is a lack of trust between donors and the receivers. I think we also need to work on bridging the gap. And my final comment is that the conference's focus on young participants in this conference is very well-meaning. I think this should be encouraged. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ganesh Thapa, for that excellent summary of very rich discussions and conversations and meetings we've had. I think it's wonderful how you captured a lot of the highlights. Now, I know there are a lot of points missing, but it's just impossible in that short period of time. But I think you did a wonderful job capturing the main points. Later, we'll get the opportunity, if there's a message that you think is really important for this conference, we'll go to the floor and give you the opportunity to also tell and brief your thoughts. I did want to, Ganesh mentioned something about media, and I did want to thank our media colleagues here. We've actually had quite an active group here at the session, and Anya tells me there's been a lot of tweets et cetera, from this conference as well. And we've had live streaming that's reached a lot more people outside of the conference. So that's all going quite well. So things are really alive. Now, before turning to our distinguished panelists, I'd like to turn to our distinguished young professionals to maybe if you could give each 2 or 3 minutes on what you took away from the conference. Do we have a microphone for our young professionals? Maybe, and please say your name and when you're providing a remark, please.
Thanks a lot for appreciating my work. This conference has enlightened my mind with a lot of ideas and solutions. This conference has enlightened my mind with a lot of ideas and solutions. And the one overriding point is that there is need to bring, isolate success stories and best practices like climate compatible development and agro practices. So I must say this is a great opportunity to drive changes to the ground level. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Very beginning, if I did a reflection of the conference, that at the first day, I got a message that what is the Hindu Kushimana region? Actually, I didn't know much about it, and also what ICIMOD does. So where it starts and where Hindu Kushimana ends and what ICIMOD does. And 24% of the world is mountain and 12% of the people live in mountain. This is actually very new to me, and that's why mountain should give a global focus. That's the message I got at the first day. And the second day, actually I have got confusion, lots of confusion, mitigation and adaptation. So if my supervisor asks me to design a project for the vulnerable area, so which I should take the trade-off, mitigation, adaptation, or both? So is there enough reference or evidence to give a concrete, to get a concrete message? So I got the message that I have to go for further study, for more Google, and for more research. And at the third day, I got a message that bring candidate talk to the country talk. So if you are the victim, if you are the vulnerable people, so you have to take initiative yourself to mitigate the problem. So after that, if a global community or a powerful country, political leader give you something or favor you, it's bonus for you. So at first you have to do yourself for solving your problem. And lastly, for my poster, thanks to the judge and also ICIMOD to appreciate it. And I got many feedbacks from the participants that it has a further scope of improvement and also for further study. And also I got some feedback which I should consider in the future. And lastly, this is my first time in Nepal. I found this country very beautiful and people are very hospitable. They are very down to earth. And I would like to thank you all again. And it's a very nice moment here for me.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And believe me, a lot of people are confused about this topic. So
Good afternoon, everybody. This is me, from Nepal. Unlike her, I'm from Nepal. I'm the ICIMOD mountain region. But very first, thank you for the organizers for this wonderful opportunity. Actually, such type of opportunity motivates youth like me, like us. And also thank you for the poster session judges for selecting my poster in the top 5. And yeah, the key message to this conference and also from this conference, we always say that the youth are the change makers. They should be given opportunities. But what we should not forget is that change cannot happen overnight. It cannot happen in a short time. Therefore, we should have passion. We should have more passion to our interest and to our work. And One of the interesting topics during past sessions during this conference was that data gap in the Himalayan regions related to climate change. So this is the right time, right opportunity. This is the great opportunity for us, for youth, to fill up the gaps. That's why we should work with our passions, with our interests in this sector, in the research sector, to fill up the gap. This is the great opportunity. When there is problem, this is the opportunity to develop innovative solutions. So when there is data gap in the Himalayan regions, and why don't we work to fill up the gap? So my message would be to work with passions in this sector if we are to contribute to our community and to our nation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Daly, for your great passion and inspiring us with that to keep up our passion, please.
Very good afternoon. I'm Sujata Bhattacharya from India. Greetings to all distinguished members. I'm very thankful to ICIMOD for providing me this opportunity to present my poster to all the world. And I'm very also indeed very thankful all the participants for such a cooperation and being so generous. My presentation, my poster presentation was on the environmental stresses. We all know that the major agricultural problems in the mountain areas are the harsh environmental conditions. And my work is on that, how we can reduce those harsh conditions by cultivating the medicinal plants with high commercial and medicinal value. And for the interactive sessions were very good, and they gave me a lot of ideas and a lot of learning that how we can bridge the gap between the society and the science. And I'm very thankful to the members of organizing committee and the people of Nepal. Once again, thank you very much, ICIMOD.
Thank you very much, Sujata.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a big honor for me to stand here to give some words for my true feeling. My name is Oh Xiao. I'm from Yunnan province, where is also a mountain area and lies in southwest of China. From both of the perspectives of geography and also the social and the economic development, my homeland, Yunnan province, is comparative marginalized in the country, and so as a young researcher, who is working on the field of gender and development, sometimes I really feel like lacking of information, lacking of resources, and also lacking of supports. But when I have been here for several days, so many professional knowledge and insightful opinions really inspired me. And what's more important, by seeing so many professionals and practitioners are truly making their efforts on the issue of mountain, I really feel that deeply encouraged. I realized that I should not put my homeland and also my work within the boundary of nation. It's also a part of the region and also a part of this world. So instead of feeling isolated, I am feeling integrated, connected, and supported, and also empowered. All of those are very, very important for me. Thank you.
Wonderful words. Thank you very much about feeling integrated and connected. Very nice. Okay, thank you once again to our young professionals. We're in good hands with you, I know that. Okay, now let me turn to our panel, and what we'll do is we'll explore from the national level to the global level. First, we have our policymakers, and I would like to ask Bhartendu Mishra, Dr. Mishra, from Nepal's National Planning Commission. What actions can be taken by national governments to incorporate the conference learnings into adaptation planning?
Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, I want to thank the organizers, ICIMOD and Ministry of Science, Technology and Environment for organizing this important conference on mountain people adapting to change and inviting me in this high-level policy panel. I was very much, I feel myself privileged to be here with you in this intellectual and august gathering of the last session. All of us, we know that Nepal is a hilly country with the population of 35% area under mountain, which is very, very important. And we are just for last 4 days, most of the deliberations were to solve the problem of this vulnerable situation of the mountains. All the deliberations conducted over the last 3 days have brought the many important lessons and have helped to highlight of the key messages. One of the key messages for me is to growing vulnerability of the poor and marginalized impacts of the climate change, especially the risk and vulnerability from hazards resulting from extreme events, and the urgent need for us to ensure immediate action. As you are aware, Nepal has already prepared the NAPAs and at the local level, the LAPAs, action of plans for adaptation. We, like other nations in the region, are also embarking on the preparation of National Action Plan for Adaptation. The NAPAs process has 4 clear steps and elements. The first 2 are strongly dependent on knowledge inputs. Current knowledge is required for laying the groundwork and addressing gaps for the preparatory elements, which is the second step. The Ministry of Science, Technology and Environment, the co-organizer of this conference, is the focal point ministry responsible for the preparation of NAPAs in Nepal. As a first step in incorporating the conference learning, I am sure that the ministry would take advantage of the rich knowledge generated by this conference for the NAPAs formulation process. In addition, ICIMOD has generated important information in the areas of glacial science and water availability scenarios that can contribute to the first 2 elements of the NAPAs preparation. Recently, the ICIMOD has published an important document on poverty and vulnerability in Nepal. These are critical inputs that can help us in preparing the adaptation plans and in effective targeting the interventions. The Planning Commission organized a meeting 2 weeks back where ICIMOD presented their finding on migration, remittance, adaptation to the Commission members. I understand that we are also embarking on a collaboration on hazards and risk migration, drawing on ICIMOD expertise. We want to have more of such meetings so that scientific findings of organizations such as ICIMOD can presented to the Planning Commission members, and through such mechanism, we can better plan policies and programs that ensure Nepal's plan for adaptation as well as integrated to our plans and programs for development of the country. In other words, we from the Planning Commission and concerned ministries will try to set up a mechanism to knowledge sharing that allows us to keep abreast of scientific findings that are critical for shaping policies and designing programs that will help in integrating adaptation into development planning. Lastly, I will leave no stone unturned to solve the problems faced by the mountain people who are mostly poor and vulnerable of Nepal. The last message that I want to give, once again, thank you, the organizers and the co-organizers, for giving me opportunity to be with you and express my feeling that I had. In future, I will say from the Planning Commission that we will try our best to solve the huge people who is the people of the mountains. They are suffering from this poverty and other problems, and they are migrating from mountains to other places. So we will try our best from the Planning Commission, that I want to share you here from the Planning Commission, that we will try our best to solve this problem. Thank you once again, and once again for inviting me on this occasion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Mishra, for the support of mountain people, but particularly encouraging is the openness to establish that link and keep that discussion with the Planning Commission and government agencies, bringing science into policy, which was what we talked a lot. That's very encouraging for us. Now, I'll ask the same question to Mr. Malik Awan from the National Assembly of Pakistan.
Thank you, David. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. First of all, I would like to thank ICIMOD for inviting me to this conference. It was really very good experience for me to learn more about mountains, mountain people, about climate change, about disasters and their preparedness. And I, being a parliamentarian, and I think I've gained a lot from this conference, and it will help me in future. So the question put to me was, what action can be taken by national government to incorporate the conference learnings into adaptation planning? So first of all, we have to see what are the output and learnings from this conference. So being the chairperson of the Parliamentary Committee of National Food Security and Research, I shall look upon the outputs with the lens of national food security. Our government of Pakistan, is developing national food security policy, which is at the final stages of its formulation. The output will be useful to refine the final version of this policy document. The requirement of mountain people will definitely be incorporated, of course, with the input from ICIMOD and based on the findings of this conference. The outputs can be used for developing adaptation strategies in various sectors like agriculture and water, etc. In general, these conference learnings and outputs will be highly valuable to add mountain perspective in any adaptation planning and implementation in future. And then I wish to congratulate ICIMOD and its leadership, experts and support staff for organizing this highly productive and useful conference, which will generate huge mountain specific knowledge and information to be uptaken by the regional governments instantly for their adaptation planning and implementation at all levels. And then I would again thank ICIMOD for giving me this unique opportunity to attending this conference, and I'm really thankful to all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Awan, especially for your valuable time as a parliament member coming all the way here to Nepal. And I'm also, again, really pleased that there's a chance to get some of these findings, and especially with regard to food security of mountain people in Pakistan, where that's important. And I know we've had interactions, and they've been very positive. So I think the findings of this workshop are definitely useful. So thank you so much for that. I'd like to ask Mr. Jigme Rinzin, also from the National Council of Bhutan. What specific action can we take to include mountain concerns and knowledge into the global adaptation agenda? So now we're going to turn to the global agenda. Mr. Rinzin.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon once again. Before I directly take the question, answer the question, if I may share my opinion, my reflection over the last 3.5 days, or the 4 days by today, I found, to be very honest, brutally honest here, I found expressions of distrust and confidence between scientists and the policymakers, between this agent and that agent, between ministries, between regional bodies. I thought there was a very disturbing trend. I internalized too much over the last few days, being one of the elected parliamentarians. Am I one of the causes which ultimately turns out to be a failure in implementing scientific reports? There was too much painful if you really think too much and think again and again. As a member of parliament, I think also I analyzed my mandate to briefly mention here. I took my mandate under 3 heads broadly: to legislate, that is to make laws, and then I also represent the electorates, the people, and thirdly, I review the performance of the government, I review the performance of other agencies, I read the reports of so many agencies. And as a member of parliament, politicians are not always, not all policymakers sometimes. It might differ from country to country, but in my country, members of the parliament, some who are in the cabinet, have dual roles. They are both in executive as well as legislative. And there are some who are not in the cabinet, merely the legislative and then the review functions which they take up. So if the policymakers fail to read, rather fail to interpret the scientific reports, then this is a big cause of concern. Is it the inability of the policymakers to really not to understand the report, or is it the deliberate not understanding? I think this is a concern we need to really explore. And over the last 4 days, this has also been acknowledged by the floor, that there is compartmentalization between scientists. Dr. Anand from University of Maryland on day before 10th November shared that scientists think implementation is not their business, and implementing agencies think of science as a separate realm. I think that was a very disturbing trend. To get to Dr. David's question, I think to include mountain concerns and knowledge into global and national adaptation agendas, I think we need to really integrate science, policy, and practice in a nutshell. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Jigme Rinzin. I think the first part was something of your reflections on this link, or what was coming up was a gap, or communication gaps perhaps between science and policymakers. But I think it's something everybody has to work hard on. And I think especially from the scientists, I'm actually asking the scientists, here we have somebody who would really appreciate that information. Is there a way to communicate, to involve, to interact with you better? I think that's what we should commit to, because certainly we have allies within the politician and policymakers, but I think it's just making that outreach and connection. Also, the last point about kind of linking right from the field level, from the ground level to the globe is what we have to do. That's the challenge ahead. Now, let me turn to Rojina Manandar, who's from another global agency, UNFCCC, involved in the climate change negotiation. Rojina, tell us about how to get the mountain concerns and mountain agenda into the global fora.
Thank you, David, and thank you again for this opportunity. And I'm very delighted to share the panel with the eminent personalities here. I feel very honored. I'm going to build on what Mr. Rinzin just said. So, and I think the interventions I'm going to make today really builds on the interventions I have been part of during this intense and very productive 3.5-day conference. If I may, I would like to expand the question David posed me in relation to what specific actions can we take to include mountain concerns into the global and adaptation agenda. And the addition would be to expand this in alignment with and with respect to the existing institutional processes, mechanisms, and political deliberations, not necessarily just the UNFCCC process, but mostly in particular in the global context. And I'm going to explain why in my interventions. And again, inspired by the discussion we have had yesterday in the communication session in the afternoon yesterday I was part of, I'm going to also try to reframe the question, reapproach the question, going back to Mr. Rinjane's approach, is perhaps the challenge would be then to bring the science, policy, and practice in terms of delivering actionable and evidence-based knowledge and deliver response to address the specific needs and concerns of mountain communities and mountain ecosystems. And if we were able to achieve this, perhaps we would be able to not just raise political visibility, but also instill political will and ensure political momentum, which I think are possibly the key to raise mountain in the global and adaptation agenda. With that framing, I would like to provide some key reflections, again building on the discussions which I have been part with. So these are not necessarily just my own inventions. The first point, I think addressing the challenges of fragmentation, we spoke about a lot during the conference. It is very imperative, in particular in the global context. We need to leverage and tap onto this existing processes and institutional mechanisms. And I have been reiterating this, but it's very important. For example, in the intervention I made yesterday in one of the panel sessions I was in about the processes we have under the UNFCCC, for example, the entry points I mentioned was the Adaptation Committee, the Nairobi Work Program, which I'm myself responsible for. In relation to those, it's very important to strengthen to use those existing entry points to strengthen the knowledge, not just the provision, but also the communication of knowledge on mountain needs and concerns. And this would be very important. Second point is in relation to bringing this into the national context, which is also referring back to the intervention made already in the panel, is relating to the issue of the National Adaptation Plans, NAPs, which is one of the central vehicle to enhance action on adaptation, mostly in relation to the medium and long-term needs, and mainstreaming adaptation into the existing strategy, policies, and programs, and at multiple sectors and multiple labels. And I think I would see I would use this platform to encourage countries in the region, in the Hindu-Kush Himalayan region, to use this opportunity, to use these NAPs as an instrument to take into account the mountain concerns while formulating NAPs. And I think this I would see as a very important opportunity to tap into while raising the mountain issues into the adaptation agenda. And this I say, it's very important given NAPS is a country-driven process, and this is, of course, would lie with the respective national governments. Perhaps then taking the technical benefit of expertise that lies within this room and much beyond, in expertise lies with the institutions and regional centers and networks I also made in my early intervention. And my last point, if I may, in relation to fostering the collaborative partnerships, which I also heard throughout the conference here. And I think the challenge I see is in terms of facilitating, addressing the issue of this asymmetrical flow of both technical and financial resources and support that would need. And in order to do so, it's very imperative, again going back to the interventions I have heard from the panel already, we should not forget the engagement. When I say engagement, it's really to ensure that we talk to each other. So it should be in the context, and of course get engagement of experts, and in particular scientific and local, traditional, and indigenous knowledge holders in facilitating such collaboration. And I think by doing so, it would hopefully address this asymmetrical flow of both technical and financial resources. And this could be done, of course, through innovative pathways, and also perhaps strengthening the existing institutions and processes that are in place. So I would like to end here. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Rosina, also for attending, because I think it's also helpful for us to have somebody from UNFCCC here to, in a sense, guide us how we can better interact with the global processes. And I think you were giving a big clue to really engage with the NAPS, the National Adaptation Planning Exercise, right, from each of the mountain countries, and use that as a way to get mountain concerns into the global discussions. I think that was, for me, I jotted that down as one clue amongst others that you gave to us. Thank you, Rosina. Now I would like to turn to Jamie McGoldrick, Resident Coordinator of UN here in Nepal. Jamie, what processes and actors can be identified that have the potential to expedite the placement of the mountain agenda in the global discourse?
Okay, thanks, David. Namaste, respected excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks to the organisers, ICIMOD and the Ministry of Science and Environment Technology for inviting me here today. And thanks very much to Ganesh Thapa for providing me some background, because I have to say that I wasn't here at any point in time during the last 3 days. And all I'm hearing today is a bundle of knowledge that I had to try and process. And I also like to say I'm a bit of a fraud because it's not my area of work. But anyway, all of that said, I'll try and answer some of the questions that were posed. But let me start off by saying that UNDP in the Asia Pacific have a Human Development Report, which goes out, the last one, 2012. And in that, they observed that climate change really magnified the existing vulnerabilities, especially for mountain people. And a lot of the hard-won gains in the development agenda could be seriously damaged and undercut by the adaptation and climate change issues. As you know better than I do, that this region and the 10 of Asia's major river systems in the Hindu Kush, as a result of that, that provides water for some 210 million people. That's the context. But at the same time, I think that the changes that are taking place here and the damage that's been put on this environment and on the populations and that, I think we cannot avoid not having this issue as part of the global agenda. And maybe then just to try and answer the question, which I only just got as I was walking in the door, so bear with me on that as well. What processes and actors can be identified? Well, I would say that the mountain countries need to continually engage in platforms such as this. And I think negotiations for collectively raising the voices of mountain people are very, very important. And to expose the world of the global agenda and those decision makers to what those vulnerabilities are, and then what they need to do in terms of the targeted programmatic and types of support that's out there that have to be brought together. And the mountain initiatives that's here in Nepal is something I would say is an informal mechanism, but it's something I would say is an opportunity for that. And I think in the past, under the technical support of ICIMOD, that initiative I think is something that we should use to try and bring the voices of the people and help countries in the region to try and understand what the agenda is better and be better placed to try and advocate for and campaign for change. And at the same time, I think discussing in the UNFCCC is something that we also have to do as well. As for the actors, I would say that obviously the government, and this government is very well aware of the fragile nature of the topography and the climate here. Only 2 months ago we had a very large flood and landslides that affected some 130,000 people, and the systems in place were actually not sufficient to actually support and address those needs, and that's the fragility that we face here. And that's only one small part of the monsoons, but the life here is not easy, and as mentioned, 35% of the people do live in mountain areas and do face a precarious existence. I would say that the policymakers and practitioners and academia need to come together. and agree on what the agenda is for the mountain people, and this should be discussed in the platforms such as this. And I think ICIMOD has to play a key role in providing the technical assistance to shape the agenda for the planning commissions and other parts of government. But let me just lastly close on my original notes, and just to say that I think keeping this issue in the global agenda is not only essential, it's imperative. I think that using advocacy and policy and using knowledge local, as was mentioned, as well as research, to try and create a unified voice that people in this country and other countries in the region who face that fragile existence can be brought to the attention of those decision makers. I think strengthening the link between global and local is an essential mechanism that has to take place. However, I would say we must avoid the plethora of initiatives. I think we see too often, and this country has 40,000 NGOs and some 200 international NGOs, and that's an indication of how instrumentalized an issue becomes. And I think it's important that we avoid that and become much more focused and much more coordinated in a way that actually brings the actual solidarity and the mass together to bring about change through key messages, and at the same time not threatening governments of the region. And I think it's important that we link the international, the national level, and through these regional platforms as well. So again, thank you for the organisers for letting me come here today, and it was good to hear the comments thus far.
Thank you. Thank you, Jamie McGoldrick. I think that some of the key words were that let's keep focused, organized, and unified, and work with the national governments, really to bring a unified voice to the national agenda. By the way, we had the Mountain Initiative was an initiative led by government of Nepal, and was instrumental in getting some of the language in the sustainable UN Sustainable Rio +20 document that Nepal brought different mountain countries together, and I think it was important, and it helped get the mountains in that UN Sustainable Development Agenda. So if we can get that mobilized again, I think it would be really good as a finding from this. Okay, Yang Yongping, can I please have your views on the getting mountain agenda in the global discourse?
Okay, thank you, Chairman. Especially thank you, the ICIMOD DGs invite me and also sponsor me to join this as a very important conference. I realized this is a very unique, it's a different the conference I used with a lot of the interactive and a lot of information to sharing. So I appreciate very much. Yes, in terms of this, Jimmy already mentioned it's an international discourse. It's some of the actions or the process needed. I would like to say first I would like to bring some the message to my government. Especially most officials this time, they are very busy with the APEC, and so they are not available here. So bring some the message to them is I realized that actually usually in China, last year we published our national strategy, this adaptation strategy, and we classified the countries at three parts. The first is eastern, is more the cities, and the central part is agriculture, and the western part is more for the eco-safety protections area. But actually the west part is, of course, it's mountains, but it's different. We are more focused on is mountains. This is I learned from this is a conference, because mountains is means it's the poor, the marginal peoples there, and also the mountains means is the ecosystem. Sometimes it's fragile, it's unstable. So the second is I learned is from this conference, especially is the grassroots innovations. A lot of these successful examples. Our national strategy actually is very much top down, and it's a very big ambitious the program. But actually this is the grassroots, is the village level, community levels. The innovation is extremely important. This morning we learned some in India they have is like this climate smart village. This is the concept. So we realize that this is the third thing is adaptation, especially its climate-smart adaptation, should be is an opportunity for the peoples in the mountains. This is a very good opportunity for this, for their futures. So this is we realize that probably is some part of its modification to the national strategy. To the international discount, we realize that actually this in BRICS, China and India is a lot of the exchange, but we still think the regional exchange is important. Another thing that is important is the IPCC AR4 is mentioned. Is that in our area, HKH is the data deficiency. We have the knowledge gap, but we think it's an international community. We have to set up like the regional monitoring network, and of course also data sharing platform. This is extremely important. I don't know if it's AI5 or the AI6 or the AI7, so still mentioned that this is a region actually is the physics data dispute. This we're thinking like the UN, FCC, some other international community should be help to this regional for this monitoring and also for the capacity buildings in the future. So this is my opinion, so I will end here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Yang Yongping. I think what's in a way unique about the Hindu Kush Himalayas, that differentiates us, say, from the South Asian communities. We have both China and Myanmar in the grouping. And I think it's a wonderful exchange of knowledge, say, between the China, South Asian, and other countries that enables. And we appreciated all the interaction with you, and as you're also a wonderful ICIMOD partner, I think telling us that basically, I mean, we can make an excuse for a little while or a data gap, knowledge gap region, but let's fill, absolutely we have to start filling that gap for the global discourse. And that can be done, I'm sure, when we're working in partnership with people like you. Thanks, Yang Yongping. Okay, now kind of to try and wind things together, I want to turn to you for two types of interventions. One, we heard the summary from Dr. Ganesh Thapa. We've heard from the nation what different countries can do, from how to get this in the global discourses. The first type of question is, are there any key messages that you think we missed that we should make sure to highlight from the floor? So that's the thing. If there's a key message you want to highlight, please let us know. The second type of comment, and toward the end would really like to focus on this more, is looking toward the future. What can you commit? What will you do, either as an individual or an institute? How do we move this forward? So those two type, and please keep your comments to just 1 minute, and I think by now you're used to the elevator talks. I think that's been a big something big in this conference. So what I'll do is pass the microphone around. I see one hand already from gentlemen there, but I'm also going to look way in the back of the room too, and ask my colleagues to help me out with the hands. Okay.
Thanks very much, David. I'm Luis Waldmüller from GIZ, Eschborn. I found the discussion quite interesting. What I missed a bit was the focus of the last Warsaw conference on loss and damage. I think that was not covered properly here, but maybe the panels can elaborate a bit on that one.
Okay, okay, good. Let's take note of that. Loss and damage, I think we had some discussions on DRR, but we can get into that as well. Okay. Go ahead, and maybe you can just help me picking some people. I see one hand. Sherpa.
This is Mingma Sherpa. I work for Mountain Spirit. My comment here is thank you very much for the wonderful workshop and conference. I learned a lot. But on the other side, for the improvement, what I realize is observing for 4 days, I think to some extent, we miss out the indigenous people, the mountain, and the sacredness aspect. So this is a very big issue that issue, as well as is the sector landscape approach is totally missed out here, and indigenous people is a different world. I think we talk about the modern science and the policy and the government's bureaucratic aspect, but on the other side, the indigenous people throughout the world, more than 650 million people are struggling for their existence and fighting for the climate change and their rights and justice. I think we didn't touch much upon this issue. So if ICIMOD, including other UN agencies and the government representative throughout this region, could address this issue in the future, that might help to address the climate change mitigation and adaptation issues. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think we're all in agreement with you there. Okay, let's get some others. Miriam from the back, I see a few hands. Okay, sir.
This is Mohammad Rafiqul Islam, Bangladesh Planning Commission. There are three different types of mountain in the world I've seen: high, medium, and low. But I think, or my proposal is, regarding adaptation issue, various types of adaptation should be taken for these all types of mountain. And I also, my point is act locally but think globally regarding adaptation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Here? Okay, good.
Good afternoon, Nagi. Yeah, it is my question actually. As we have distinguished panelists here on the dais, after every conference, one of the major points that is discussed and one of the major points that is raised is governments, academia, researchers, and development practitioners should come together, should work together to solve the problems, to solve the issues. But as we have distinguished panelists here who are from the governments, agencies, or who have worked in the government agencies in the past, or who have worked with governments since a long time, why this issue is not addressed by the government, and why this issue is not taken seriously, and why we raise the same issue again and again.
Does anybody want to answer?
Thank you very much.
Does anybody want to have a quick answer to that? Okay.
I just want to supplement with him. In this conference, we have lots of thoughts and inspirations, and also we have a representative from development partner, donor agencies, government. But it's actually our curiosity to know actually what is the forward linkage of this conference. Is there any dialogue, is there any declaration, like in 2013 we were here, in 2014 we achieved this, and in 2015 we will have to reach this. So just to know this, what's the forward linkage actually of this conference?
Go ahead, and maybe we take a few.
Hi, this is Sumit Keswani from the Times of India. First of all, I thank you for having us here and for all the discussions which included intellectuals, policy makers, and ground level workers. I think that's what contributed to this conference the most. It was very interesting to notice the wide gulf between national policies on climate change and adaptation and the needs of local communities and how they differ. I think that was my takeaway. And this is addressed to my colleagues. This is more of a request than a question to the panelists. I think besides covering this conference and the discussions and takeaways from this, the media should also highlight this gulf between their national policies and the needs of their local community specific to their area, so that the policy makers have a clear idea where the gulf lies, and also the lack of communication between scientists and policy makers, so that there is some change after this conference, so that there is something changes after all these discussions. Thank you.
Yes, sir. I can't. Miriam, help me in that. I can't see. Okay, that's good.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It's indeed a wonderful conference. I congratulate ICIMOD and the government of Nepal for this very, very interesting and useful conference. And we covered almost all the aspects of the adaptation for the mountain region. But one thing missing, which is we are not only the most densely populated mountain in the world, but we are also rapidly urbanizing mountains. So somewhere I think this should figure out how we can move ahead with the sustainable urbanization in the mountain, because it is emerging as one of the major drivers of environmental changes in the mountain. Thank you so much.
Could I also, that's good. Could I get people also to think about, and it's kind of related to a question down here in the front that was saying, how do we move forward from this? And I think part of the answer is, what can each of us commit to, right? What will you do? So if we can move the discussion more to commitments to future action would be really good. And I know we couldn't cover everything in the conference, so I'd rather not hear about what we missed in the conference. I think we covered a lot. But rather what to commit to. I would really love hearing that from people. Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Amal from India. In last 4 days, we have seen people from academia, we have seen people from the policy making side, we have seen people from the scientific background. But we are all discussing here, how to make difference in the lives of the people at the grassroots level. I think, and we were struggling, to find out what are exactly their problems. So instead of, discussing it among ourselves, it's time, how about having some of those people for whom we are working have here in this conference room, and why not talking to them directly instead of, guessing whether, what we are discussing is right or wrong. So I think people from the grassroots level, they should be also make participants in such organizations. It will be more fruitful, I guess. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much. This is Salman from Focus Pakistan. Actually, my point is that one of the key recommendations of the conference should be to the national government that climate change adaptation should be taken as a cross-cutting theme and should be part of their development agenda or development plan, national development plan, rather than going on specific, plans and that will go in silos and nobody will get the ownership of that. Secondly, then at regional level, we should have some follow-up mechanism to follow on those national plans where those can be tracked, whether the climate change theme is taken as cross-cutting theme or not. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that recommendation. I see a hand, Andrew, in the back there. I think it's... Okay.
Thank you for giving me an opportunity. My name is Susila Paudel. I have a question with all the panelists in the front side. Are you really interested to solve the problem, or are you just fulfilling your formalities to, international, to show something in a national and international forum? And if you are really sincere, if just keep your hand in your heart and just ask yourself whether you are really sincere to solve the problem. If this is true, then this disaster has been gone in the political and business level first. So you have to control for the corruption. Most corruption they have intentionally created to dismanage of every society, every level, which is reflect in the ecosystem here. So please, you just have to remind that. And one more thing, I have given so many my articles to the Planning Commission, Environmental Secretary who came in the first day. Of course, he raised my question, what I put in my article, but he forgot to invite me. So how you import the grassroots level people in your strategy in the future, and how you will be the effective. So please, if you are all this drama, then it's enough and enough. Please, do something.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm Su Xianyu from Chinese Chemical Sciences. I'm very glad, I'm very honored to be here, and thanks ICIMOD and the conference to invite me to come here. I'm very appreciate the topic of this conference is the solution beyond the boundary. And I'm very appreciate the idea to cross boundary for the adaptation to change. However, I want to stress there's one boundary we can't cross over. That's the boundary of the watershed of the river basin. If we want to make an accurate response of the climate change to response of the hydrological change to climate to hydrological processes to climate change for water and food security, we must make decision over the watershed. At present, the watershed, for example, the Mekong River and the Nujang River was belongs to different countries. So the data sharing problem is a very big challenge to the scientific research. So I want the conference to make a voice for appeal for the data sharing over the countries in order to make decision over the basis within the boundary of the basis to make the accurate prediction for the climate change. Thank you.
Good, good. Thank you. We'd definitely take note of that. Now I'm seeing several hands. I'll come to the back. Babar Khan, I also see you. I see a lot of hands. Okay. Okay. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, David. I am Bharat Upadhyay from Separate, national NGO, working in Nepal since last 2.5 decades. After hearing the proceedings of the conference, what I tend to perceive is, in terms of the climate change impacts, most of us we focus our attention to the negative impacts of climate change. But our work in Nepal, our experience in Nepal indicates that there are some positive impacts of climate change. I think in this conference we have not highlighted those things. For example, now you can take the example of Mustang in Nepal, and I think ICIMOD has done some studies on that. Now, in the context of the adaptation to climate change, the farmers, the communities, they are shifting or changing their cropping patterns. For example, the apple, Mustang is traditionally famous for apple cultivation. Now they have shifted apple cultivation more towards north, where the temperature is very favorable. But instead of apple, now the other crops like walnut, which is more high value than apple. So in that context, there is a research need, how to identify the more economic alternative, let's say, subsectors for intervention under the climate change scenario. Thank you.
Okay, good. Thanks for highlighting the positive points of climate change. I'm going to ask Babar Khan if you can say something, then Professor, then right behind you, Miriam. Babar.
Thank you so much, Dr. David. Actually, I was thinking that after every conference, we try to carry back a message with us, which after spending some time normally, either we convey to the others and forget about our own work. This is the time now. We need to carry a commitment back with us. It doesn't really matter what we are doing, but the commitment, I hope, will help us make this change, make the difference. If we commit with ourselves in whatever capacity we are working, we need to follow very seriously the key messages and findings from this conference. Instead of just making speeches, if we focus ourselves onto the actions, either small, medium, or large, I'm quite hopeful that together we can make the difference. This is my message. Thank you.
I think that's a fantastic message, and one that I would like, in fact, I would request that I'm going to take just a few more things, but all I want to hear is if you have a commitment that you would like to share with the audience, right? I think let's close it, let's round it up. I did want to comment, we intentionally didn't want to have like a statement of action because it tends to be hard to follow. We do want to have findings from the conference, but I'd love it if we could get some different commitments from people. You know, you don't even have to express them, but I hope everybody commits something. Yes, sir.
First, I would like to say the congratulations to ICIMOD to have this successful conference on mountain adaptations. And thanks to you to give me such good opportunities. I have strong suggestions about how to make science and scientists more powerful to involved into the adaptation action practice and policy making process. So my suggestion is to make more advanced planning and designing for the mountain people, mountain areas, to make knowledge, technology, and science into adaptation. Thank you.
Okay, good, thank you. I think the woman, from Mugu District, Orange, here, yeah. And then.
Hello, back. I'm Elena, and the message, yes.
Okay.
What I would like to say is, we have been talking a lot about the indigenous knowledge and practices in putting the indigenous and the marginalized and vulnerable community in the core of the climate policy. But I think it is equally important to see the exclusion of those communities from the local decision-making bodies without realizing or without researching whether they are represented meaningfully in the decision-making bodies or not. I think we will fail to write effective climate policy. And also because climate change have a different impacts on different group of people. So what I would like to say is, at the end, it's an issue of inequality. It's not just about scientific data and scientific thing, climate change. It's also equally about the issue of social justice and human rights. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for taking that. Way in the back.
Pushkin from India. What I have heard very clearly, loud and clear in this conference, that there is a need to work at subnational level. So I would like to share my commitment that on return we have been working with youth on climate change issues, and with their help, I would like to do a rapid kind of survey or assessment at the subnational level with the elected political representative and administrative people to gauge their understanding about climate change issues and adaptation. Maybe this can lead for a collective action across the Hindu Kush Himalaya region to plan a collective capacity building program for subnational level, especially for political representative and the administrator to mainstream adaptation into development planning.
Thank you very much, Pushkin. Let's, maybe we take 3 more, and I see a hand there. Okay.
Good afternoon. This is Yasmina van Driel from Meta Meta. A very practical point, because you asked what will you take home or what can you commit to. Something that resonates a lot, that I've been hearing a lot during the conference, is communication. Coordination is lacking. We should communicate more, coordinate more with each other instead of reinventing the wheel. So I think something very practical when we design our programs, whether it's a research program or an implementation program, communication comes often as an afterthought. And I think we should budget much more for it, and I think it's also something that donors and funders should take home, because often we're constrained in how we budget. So I think this is something we need to work on. If we really want to communicate more and coordinate more, there needs to be room for that. So that's something that I will try to do more in our work. So,
okay,
thank you.
Good. Thank you very much for that. I hope we can all do that, more and better communication. Yes, sir, on the, yes.
Thank you very much. I am from Bangladesh. You know about the hill threat zone of Bangladesh. This is a very vulnerable area because the Hindu Kush Himalayas are not properly treated, we think. And this is very crucial, you know. the country is not also able to face this problem. And I think that we are taking the projects or the decisions, but implementation is being delayed. Due to delay of the decision, the situations are being complicated. So if we go for small and the few decisions and implementation we may fasten, then it will be more effective, I think. I think if ICIMOD consider this area urgently, and the decisions making fasten is taken there, that will be very effective for that region. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And I had one in the back.
Thank you very much. I'm Dr. Fazul Bari from Pakistan. First of all, congratulations on an excellent, very comprehensive conference. My commitment to the workshop as a follow-up would be that if we look, there are a lot of people who are pastoralists. There are a lot of issues with the grazing and the rangelands. And currently, we are formulating range management policies for a number of provinces. And I will keep this thing in mind, that how we can keep the learning from this workshop to help those people who are nomads or who are the grazier, to support them in the context of climate change. And I must say that ICIMOD is also helping one of the provinces, rather two provinces, in formulation of such plan. So I think it's a good opportunity, and we would commit that we keep this thing into account while we're formulating range management policies. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that commitment. Can I get one last? Maybe we can, I see maybe one in the back and then one from Afghanistan. Okay, yes, sir. And then one I'll take in the back. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. This is Miraqab Popalzai from Afghanistan. I think the problem is in Afghanistan with the lack of public awareness. The public awareness is so low, and I think three factors can play a big role, like media. If the ICIMOD and other NGOs make special programs and special aware programs with them, it will have big effects. And also local elders and also religious leader to contact them and tell the local people that the mountains have a lot of advantages and it have big impacts on the daily lives, because currently we see that local people in collaborating with the wood smugglers, cutting the trees in our country, and the government's not doing enough because there's a security problem. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. One last. Who has a wonderful commitment?
Thank you very much. Also, thank you very much to the organizer ICIMOD and all the panel members and everybody present here. I'm Mong Marma from the Chittagong Hill Tracts of Bangladesh. What I'd like to propose is, as far as knowledge sharing things concerned, I think it's very important, as we learned also from the earlier session about the indigenous knowledge and practice, how that being adopted in different areas, different countries. So for me also personally, I was here and I also observed some of the indigenous practice, the techniques in the rural areas. So I think that could be, if we can transfer that, other areas, for example, my area, Chittagong Hill Tracts. So if we can, for example, facilitate that visit by bringing some real benefit for farmers, or just to give them hands-on training or see how or just exchange those techniques, I think that will benefit a lot. And then other thing, I was actually meant to raise that before, but thanks to one of the guests who raised that question, I think yesterday, from Bhutan. So that is regarding I don't know how I term it, like damage done by some wild animals on the properties of the farmers. So why I'm raising is this issue's been really been going on some 10-15 years in my village, where farmers, they always lose their crops, like paddy, mostly rice, because of the wild elephant attacks. So, and also every year, if you check the newspaper, every year people, like at least 5-6 people have been killed. And also there's a casualties from the elephant side. So that issue's been actually, once I experienced, I witnessed also myself, somebody been killed.
Okay, I think.
So I just, please, can I just finish?
Yes.
I think that it needs to be really emphasized in future upcoming events. And also, as far as in response to your question, what is my commitment? I think personally, yes, I have a commitment, and I will try. I commit to consume less. I mean, just for my survival and good health. And I commit. I'm ashamed that I cannot commit. I will not be using any technology like a laptop or So if you can figure it out anyway, I'll be very happy.
Great. Consume less. I thought you were going to commit to solving the human-wildlife conflict. Okay, wonderful. I know there's more comments out there, but we're coming pretty close to the end of time. Now, I think all of the panelists don't need to respond, but if anybody has a commitment that you would like to make a response, I do. Please ask you.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I want to thank all the participants for putting your concerns in this big gathering where most of the people are aware of the things and the problem that is faced by almost all country members. So I want to thank you for that. And one thing I can tell you about this climate change, only one country or only one area, suppose you can say the South Asia, or we cannot solve all the problems which is caused by this climate change. So what I can suggest, we have to work together, the whole world community, to solve this climate change issues, especially for this mountains problem. Another thing, that these type of conferences, as we are here from many countries and we have already listened a lot of things, so these type of conferences is very much useful. So far I understand that it draws the attention of the whole world community as well as the national level people like me as I am here. So we feel that we are very much eager to solve. Our government is very much have understood the problem which is faced. From Nepal side, you can understand only the last season, a lot due to this climate change, a lot of rains that caused a lot of human and losses and a lot of property losses. So we are concerned about these things that is happening due to the climate change. But we have our own limitations. We cannot solve all the problems in 1 or 2 years. We have different types of this adoption plans, as I have mentioned earlier, Nepal and La Paz. But we have the one problem, that the limitation of funding. We do not have sufficient to solve, and we are, we are requesting the developed countries to support us. Only in the last month in New York, where the international almost near about 200 countries participated in that gathering, which was organized by our General Secretary of UN. And on that, it was everyone put their concern like as we are putting here. And a lot of commitment, as I was also there listening not all, but some of them, everyone is, they are very much serious about the problem, especially which is caused by this climate change. So, and they are going to put more money, and if we are getting more money, and as this type of conferences, if we organize in the future, that will make aware of the problems, and institutions like ICIMOD, that institution is most of the time they are organizing such type of, I think, conferences or seminars or something like that, and these type of things will be very much beneficial. And from our side, from the government of Nepal, I can assure you, we very much seriously thinking there's plus point and minus point, because there are some plus point also, the temperature rising, and that is how the shifting of the our cultivation practices. Everyone now is concerned about that. And once again, I want to thank you, and we can talk personally also if you have any queries or something regarding to our Nepali plans and programs regarding this climate change. I will welcome you in future. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Mr. Vincent.
Thank you, Chair. Let me take a minute or two, I promise.
Okay.
I think of so many concerns raised, one I would want to pick is on good governance, which was raised by Sushila Patel. I think she raised this issue from the very first day since I was in the panel. I think I'm not a climate expert myself, neither am I an environmentalist, but I do believe doing things in the proper way. I have full trust in faith and faith in science, and based on the faith and trust on science and their reports, we make policies, and once the policies are made, I think when it comes to practice, then we need a good system. In the morning, we acknowledge that institutional framework, institutional failure is one of the causes where we need to really rework within our region. She even asked us to place our hands against our heart and then speak out loud. I think I'm going to do that right away. In Bhutan, per se, good governance is a very important aspect of our overall thinking, philosophy. We tend to believe there are 4 sub-pillars under this good governance. One is accountability. I think whatever you are doing, whoever you are, wherever you are, your action should be accountable to the intended beneficiaries, to the public at large. And then whatever you do should be transparently disclosed. There should be proper disclosure. And then whatever you do should be efficient enough to justify that the cost incurred is justified, and then the intended objectives are achieved. And then lastly, we need to be professional enough wherever you are. I think to ensure that you have these things in place, we need a good law and a proper institutional mechanism in place. I think, as Mr. said, he would welcome a one-to-one talk with anybody there. Please, you can follow up with him. Thank you so much.
Do any of the other panelists have a quick response? Mr. Awan and then Rojina.
So, thank you, David. And then I would like to say that on 27th of November, when ICIMOD experts and board members will be there in Islamabad, I'm trying to arrange a meeting of parliamentarians with the ICIMOD experts and board members. So, to enhance good understanding of requirement and needs of mountain and its inhabitants, and I'll try to promote awareness regarding mountainous people and their needs within the context of climate change. So I'll extend full support to this upcoming National Food Security Policy of Pakistan, which contains very visible mountain agenda. So in the end, I would like to conclude by conveying a message to ICIMOD to include population control in their priority and agenda, as adding an extra life is a threat to the environment and climate. And mountains and its inhabitants are already in resource constraint. So this is I would like to conclude.
Good. Rosina, did you have?
I have 2 points. One, my personal commitment. I would like to commit in relation to the work I do with the UN Climate Change Secretariat is to engage with the institutions and expertise I have met in the conference, and of course strengthen the collaboration I have been doing with ICIMOD in strengthening the knowledge base on mountains in order to inform the adaptation planning and actions which are deliberated under the agenda item on Nairobi work program. That's my commitment, and if I may, I would just like to respond to a question I heard, I think was regarding the loss and damage. Of course, I didn't have time yesterday in my intervention to elaborate on that. If there is time, I just want to quickly go through briefly, if one is allowed.
Like a 1 minute
okay.
brief.
For the benefit of audience, because this does incorporate and synergy with the issue of loss and damage in relation to the work we are addressing in the conference. So as a part of Cancun Adaptation Framework, one of the outcomes which I did mention yesterday is initiating the work, which the work program on loss and damage, to initiate the consideration of approaches on loss and damage associated with adverse impacts of climate change, including the slow onset events. And following 2 years of deliberation in Warsaw last year, the Warsaw International Mechanism was established, which is a central vehicle under convention to promote the approaches associated with the adverse impacts of climate change. And for that, the interim committee was established to implement the functions of this mechanism. And the 2-year work plan has been formulated, which is on the web, and if you'd like to look at it, which will be decided in the upcoming COP in Lima.
Okay, great. Great, thanks. So if there is something on loss and damage, we know who to talk to, Rogina, and others here, I'm sure. Could I then take a chance on behalf of ICIMOD to give some commitments that what we'd like to do? We were a huge, of course, huge beneficiary of having all of you here, of getting all your ideas and squeezing a lot of knowledge out of you. We can definitely take this forward in many different ways. One is through the ideas that have been generated here. We actually have a lot of field sites with local communities right across the Hindu Kush Himalayan region. So we will take many of the ideas and put them into action through pilot testing and trying to upscale this. So that's something immediately we can do. Second, we can facilitate knowledge sharing. I think like we've done today, we can do more of that in the future. I hope that's beneficial. I'm sure it is amongst participants in our regional member countries and beyond. Third, I think what's come out is the importance of the NAP process, and we're there to help. I think it's ICIMOD, and it's ICIMOD plus partners, so we can work together to help in that NAP process too. There was concern about filling knowledge gaps, and ICIMOD, with partners, with all of us together, can organize and I believe play a significant role in doing both the science as well as organizing all kinds of other knowledge, right, in the region, trying to put that knowledge together, whether it's traditional or local, and working hard at ICIMOD to organize and communicate that knowledge to the global community as well. So I think you heard about many of the programs, but one that I did want to highlight in that regard is we're starting a program called Himalayan Monitoring Assessment Program, HIMAP. And there was I felt there was some demand saying that the IPC is quite global, what we need is something more regional. And so we're actually starting a process of gathering scientists and practitioners like this group to do an assessment, something modeled on IPCC, but I can say we'll take into consideration more local knowledge and be very much policy driven. So we'll do that together. We can play this role of a platform, and we commit to do that, to try harder to connect knowledge people, scientists, with policymakers. We commit to doing that as well. We commit to taking the mountain agenda to the regional fora. And again, we work with partners, especially government partners. We'd like to work hand in hand with you to do that, to get these messages of the mountain on the global agenda. We commit also to building capacity on these mountain issues in the region as well. And another point is what we'd like to do is promote better gender inclusiveness. in the region. I wanted to highlight one network we have. It's called Women, Gender, Environment, and Mountains, WGEM. And it's a network of women or men who are working in the field of gender, so that actually we can identify people who to work with and get more voices of women heard in this kind of deliberations. So I think that if you're interested in that, if you can look up WGEM, I'm not sure if we can show that link. So I believe we've gained a lot as ICIMOD, and have to thank you all very much for your ideas during the conference. Now, as a final word, I was looking on some of the expectation of the conference about developing new understanding and ideas. And I think if you can take ideas back to your work and maybe modify them toward your situation, then I believe the conference was a success, if you can take those ideas and apply them. But certainly there were a lot of ideas around the room, and I myself learned a lot, and I'm hoping that and sure others did too. A big topic was to ensure that knowledge products are effectively used in policy and practice. And that was a lot of our discussion. And I actually think this conference was different in that we weren't just talking about the content, the knowledge itself. We were talking about how to get messages into policy. And I actually do think we made some ground there. That third, we were hoping that this event would enhance communities of practice and networks. And I can tell you, I'm sure you've all met new friends and colleagues who are working on similar topics. And please just keep that up in an informal way. Keep those networks alive, talking about this important topics. And finally, we expected to get some messages that we could take to the global community. We've got those now. We have alliances with you, with our networks. I think we've got alliances with the government and also UNFCCC. So I feel satisfied that we've met several of those expectations of the conference. So with that, I'd like to close the conference. I know there's going to be announcements, but I did want to thank each and every one of you for, I'd say, really passionate and involved discussions over the last few days, including this last session. Thank you all very, very much.